What up, fight fans? So yes, it's almost a week removed from Mayweather Maidana 2, and there is a reason why I've waited to do a recap video, because there's just an onslaught of news that is spawned from Saturday, from the actual fight itself to what's now transpiring in Mayweather Promotions as far as changes occurring, and also pay-per-view numbers. So let's get right into it. Fight itself was, in a sense, anticlimactic. I picked Floyd to win by decision, but I thought Maidana was going to be a lot more aggressive than he came out in relation to the first fight. Floyd, to give him credit, was landing really good counter shots, was landing that jab to the body, and was landing good hooks to the body, to where, you know, rounds 5, 6, and 7, you could see Maidana taking deep breaths. So I also didn't like how Maidana looked at the weigh-in. Not to give any excuse at all as far as his condition, but he looked a little flat to me. And even from the offset, from the bell ringing for the first round, he didn't attack Mayweather like I think he should have. I think he should have really applied the same strategy as he did in the first fight. Now, one of the major complaints, it was Floyd's excessive holding. In hindsight, I'm not surprised that Floyd went about that strategy, as he's not the first guy I've seen implement that. I've seen Bernard Hopkins use that in several of his fights. I've seen Andre Ward use that in several of his fights. It's not a pretty style. It's effective when you got a guy like Maidana who's going to try to implement some type of pressure. I also didn't like that he didn't cut off the ring on Floyd like how he did in the first fight. But Floyd was on his bike a little more than he was in the first fight. And I'm not saying that in the sense of like he was running the whole fight. Floyd was just moving a lot more in this fight than he did in the first fight. So adding all of that, funny enough, the biggest story of this fight isn't so much of what Floyd did, more so than what Maidana did at the end of the third round, which was land a really hard right hand on Floyd that looked as if hurt him momentarily. It was Floyd basically trying to land the right hand over Maidana's jab, but Maidana's right hand was the more authoritative shot that landed between both right hands that were kind of crossing each other. And you could tell by Floyd's body language that he felt that shot, and even to the point when Maidana was walking back to the corner, he turned around to look to see Floyd's body language, because I think he even knew that he hurt him with that shot. To Floyd's credit, though, again, and I've said this in the past, just because you land on Floyd doesn't mean that he's automatically going to be out. The crazy shit about him is that you got to get past that defense that is a task on its own, but he's also got a good beard too. So once you get past all that, and it's very rare that you do, you still got to deal with the fact that like he could take a punch. And we've seen it in fights with Chop Chop Corley, Shane Mosley, somewhat in the Castillo fight. I was more of the body shots he was landing. And then even in the first Maidana fight, where he was landing like those overhand rights on Floyd, and they were landing. In this fight, Floyd didn't let Maidana get away with a lot of the tactics that he in a sense got away with in the first fight. But you know, Kenny Bayless also too wasn't really calling much on Floyd, when I think there were times where I think he could have warned Floyd at least and said, yo, you know, you're holding a bit much. But I'm not gonna make such an excuse or make a lot of mention of it, because again, like, this is boxing. That is a strategy some people implement. Some refs catch it, some don't. Some let it go a little bit more than other refs would. But it's just one of those things, man. I don't think it's anything to really blame Bayless so much, more than I think really Maidana maybe coming into the fight without like a solid strategy, at least from what I saw. So that's pretty much all I can gather from the fight itself. Now, the obvious elephant in the room, as has always been, is, you know, Floyd being approached about a Pacquiao fight. And Jim Gray said, yo, you know, what's the deal? Will you entertain a Manny Pacquiao fight? And he kind of just left it like, you know, if they want to make it happen, I'll listen to the offer, or you know, if they want the fight, I'll take the fight. So again, it's like it's back to square one. You know, we've been down this road where both guys have fights, you know, a month or two away from each other, and you know, the question again presents itself. But again, like it's to me at this point, it's nothing really to I would hold a lot of weight on. Pacquiao's got a fight with Chris Algieri, which I'll be talking about shortly, and you know, Pacquiao's gonna get past that, and from that point on, me personally, I mean, I think at this point, man, like they should just make the fight and be over and done with. Now, from what I've been reading, as far as an article that I saw in the LA Times, Steven Espinosa seems like he is on the boat of trying to make this fight happen, whether it's working, both Showtime and HBO working together to make it happen. It wouldn't be the first time. They did it with Tyson and Lennox Lewis. And you know, and it was a big money fight. This arguably would be the biggest money fight, even 3 years removed from its peak. It's still the biggest potentially grossing fight in boxing history. And it's really gonna come down, I think, ultimately. I mean, people may not want to believe this, or you know, they'll say something different, but I think ultimately it's gonna be up to Floyd Mayweather, because he is the guy who is the deciding factor as far as calling the shots. Now, it could be a situation too where Pacquiao's team and Arum are kind of will be on the boat of like, we'll do anything, you know. But again, I'm not gonna put too much weight on it, only because, you know, the pay-per-view numbers are starting to come out now, and from what was talked about before, you know, there was rumors that the fight only did 700,000, only 800,000. The first fight reportedly did only about 850,000 buys, which for Floyd's standards is rather low. Now, what I was hearing earlier in the week was that the pay-per-view did only 700, 750, 800, like in that range. As what was reported yesterday, they're saying that the pay-per-view did 925,000 buys, which would have eclipsed the first fight. If that's the case, 925,000 is still a good outing as far as the overall selling of Marcos Maidana, who's not a big name with casual fans. So if that is the case, then, you know, I can really see them not attempting to go make the Manny Pacquiao fight, because the other name that is there is Amir Khan. And I think that's a fight that Showtime can make that I don't know if it do 1 million buys. Maybe it will. I mean, I'm on the boat that it won't, but that could be an 800,000 buy, 900,000 buy type of fight, where if that's the case, then they're not going to attempt to make the Pacquiao fight for May. I mean, that's why I'm not like getting very eager, but I just think based on the numbers that are coming out that they're probably going to attempt to do the Amir Khan fight. Now, Amir Khan has a fight in December. So, realistically, he could lose that fight. I mean, let's just say, for argument's sake, he loses it. Who does Floyd go after at this point? Because they're both out of guys to fight. Everything now is just a paycheck, in a sense. Like, just a job for them to just make, you know, whatever guaranteed money they're going to get. So, for Floyd Mayweather right now, if these numbers are solid, because there are other people that are reporting that these are like false numbers, or they're bloated numbers, but again, like, who really knows, man? The only numbers that people in general can go and literally find out that's public information is the gate, because that's public information. The pay-per-view sales, I mean, they could tell us the Canelo fight did 2.4, and what if it only did like 1.5, 1.6, which is still a lot, but we don't know that, man. You know, I mean, they could be telling us anything. We'll have to wait and see who Floyd's gonna fight next. My gut is telling me it's gonna be Amir Khan if he gets past his fight in December, who's rumored to be Josecito Lopez, which if is the case, strap on your seatbelts and get ready for a Mayweather versus Khan fight. Another one of the major stories coming out of not necessarily the fight, but Mayweather Promotions is there's one confirmed story, which is Rafael Garcia, his cut man and the guy who's been taking care of his hands for the last 15, 16 years, is no longer a part of Mayweather's camp. I'm not gonna get too much into it. You can go, I believe Fight Hype has an article, and there's other publications that have articles pertaining to Garcia leaving. What I will say is, based on his comments, it looks as if Floyd is pushing him away, as well as, to the surprise of many, Leonard Ellerbe looks as if he may be on his way out of Mayweather Promotions. Nothing obviously is confirmed, but based on an interview that was on Fight Hype, it looks like he's trying to make these changes. Now, we obviously saw Alex Ariza is working with Mayweather in some fashion. He's not officially with Mayweather's team, but that could change within the next day or so, or the next week or so. We're also seeing the arrival of Angel Heredia to Mayweather's gym, which is very crazy considering his past, and Floyd being on the boat of cleaning up the sport. Not trying to send any innuendos out there, but it's just very odd. There is an obvious rift between Leonard Ellerbe and Floyd Mayweather. There was also the situation about Floyd defending both the 154 and 147 titles. He apparently wasn't down with that, and Ellerbe kind of had him sign off on it without him even knowing about it. And just a slew of other things. And one sticking point that I think is kind of, I would say, confirms that this is like the end of their relationship, is him mentioning that they're outgrowing each other. Now, Leonard Ellerbe's been with Floyd since the very beginning, man. I mean, if for some of the boxing fans who started watching boxing, I don't know, maybe let's just say 10 years ago. If you go back to 1998, 1999, when he won his first world title, Leonard Ellerbe's there, man. I mean, he's there from the very beginning. So that's a very big change as far as him not being in Mayweather's camp anymore. Because what Mayweather is suggesting is that there's going to be major changes come his next fight, his next corner. Now, the question is that going to be a benefit to him, or is it going to be something that's going to be a downfall? Because we've seen in cases where it's helped the fighter and it's maybe not helped them so much. I mean, I'm not going to throw names out there, but I mean, there's several examples. I would say in the next 3 to 4 months, man, I mean, I obviously there's going to be a lot of news pertaining to who's Floyd going to fight, what's this team going to start to look like now. Other than that, that's the recap of a pretty crazy week in the world of Mayweather Promotions. And like I said, I mean, we'll just have to just wait and see. Well, Marcos Maidana, I think he's still going to be around, man. I think he's still going to be a fighter that may be somewhat of a gatekeeper at 147. I mean, look, fights between him and Sean Porter, Kell Brook, Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia are all potential fights, and they're all fights I'd love to see. So, considering that he gave Floyd at least one tough fight, and in the second fight, like I said, not very climactic, but he did manage to hurt Floyd at least in the second fight, and was able to touch him. So he's still relevant in my book. So we'll just have to wait and see who they put him up against. But anybody he fights, whoever's fighting him is gonna have a hell of a night, man. So that's pretty much all I got as far as this fight is concerned. Stay tuned. October we have Gennady Golovkin and Marco Antonio Rubio. I've already talked about that fight. Nonito Donaire is on the undercard for that fight that's going to be taking place at the StubHub Center. Bernard Hopkins and Sergey Kovalev happening in November. I still got to talk about that fight. And that's pretty much it, man. So as I always say, subscribe, hit the links, and I will be back soon.